Hello, I'm Dr. Richard Nongard. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I've prepared this short video to help you understand how to master what's called the art of mindfulness. Now, chances are pretty good your therapist, your coach, your counselor has asked you to view this short video and then to also practice on a daily basis the art of mindfulness by listening to an MP3. You can actually find the MP3 right below this video. There's a link to download it. And you can download it to a phone, an MP3 player, or really any other device and take it with you on the go. It's a very short MP3. It's probably about 2.5 or 3 minutes. The idea is that by listening to that MP3, where I guide you through a basic process of using mindfulness, and doing that on a daily basis, you will begin to live life mindfully. Now, let's talk about this word mindfulness and exactly what it's all about. It's really all about living fully in the present. You may have seen the movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, Kung Fu Panda. And in the movie Kung Fu Panda, he is learning Kung Fu from the great master, and the great master is a turtle. His name is Master Oogway. And probably in one of the most famous lines of the whole movie, he tells the panda, Master Oogway does, "Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery. All we have is the present, and that's why it's a gift." This really does sum up the heart of mindfulness. It's a psychological technique or a strategy or a way of really being fully present in the moment. Now, why do we want to be fully present in the moment? Well, the answer to that is because many people find that they spend a lot of their mental time dwelling in the past, really trying to fix or ruminate or dwell on things that have happened a long time ago. Now, the things that have happened to us are important. They actually bring us to where we are today. But the reality is, no matter how difficult, how consequential, how painful, or how difficult the past was, there really isn't anything we can do to change the past. Now, a lot of people, if they're not busy living in the past, they're busy worrying about the future. A lot of anxiety and fear about what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I do this? What if they do that? That's really all about ruminating in the future, living in the future. All we have is the present. The future isn't here. We really don't know what the future holds. Now, in addition to being a therapist, I'm also a university professor, and so I like academic studies. And an academic study was done about the things that people worry about. And it was discovered that about 92% of the things that we worry about simply never materialize. They never happen. Now, a lot of the folks who I see in my office for therapy, they come in to see me because of anxiety or because of depression or because of issues related to anger or relationship difficulties or really a variety of other concerns and issues. But by learning mindfulness, no matter what stress a person is experiencing, they can take a moment in the present to let go of the regrets of the past and to stop being anxious about the future and enjoy the moment. Now, what does the research say that mindfulness is useful for? I mentioned some of the clients I work with. It actually is something that was developed many years ago, primarily in the hospital setting, to help clients with chronic pain take control over their physical symptoms of distress. So one of the great things about mindfulness is that it can not only help us with our mental or our emotional frustrations, but it can actually help us to let go of some of the physical difficulties that we experience as well. Mindfulness has been proven to be a useful tool for stress reduction. And I don't know how many of you are students, but a lot of people find that by practicing mindfulness, it actually enhances their focus and improve their memory. And of course, as a marriage and family therapist, I've learned that when people learn mindfulness, it increases their ability to communicate more effectively, more compassionately, and to navigate the difficulties of a relationship a little more effectively. Well, what does mindfulness practice entail? Well, it entails taking 2 or 3 minutes with intention a couple of times a day to simply close the eyes for a minute and practice setting aside any regrets over yesterday or any fears about the future. Now, people ask me all the time, is there a special posture or position I need to be in to practice mindfulness? Well, the answer to that is actually no. The idea of a mindfulness practice is that when we practice mindfulness, it will become something that we do automatically, hopefully, throughout each and every day. And that's the result that I see in my office. In fact, the first time I teach mindfulness to clients, they close their eyes, I go through a basic practice of mindfulness with them, and they almost always say, okay, that was relaxing, or I could see how that would be helpful. It doesn't seem to have a tremendous impact on them. But when they practice this on a daily basis, it becomes something that they do automatically without the MP3. And they come back to my office a couple weeks later and say, wow, I was mindful at work when normally I would have been upset with a customer. I was mindful of my relationship, and instead of acting impulsively, I was able to let it just go over my head. As a result of practicing mindfulness, my clients are often surprised at the many different benefits that they experience. Now, during a practice of mindfulness, we're going to be focusing on the breath. The reason why we're going to be focusing on the breath is real simple. No matter where you go, you always have the breath with you. This is the great thing about mindfulness. You can practice it anywhere. There's really nothing magic or special about the breath. It's something that we all have with us all of the time, and so we all have the ability to focus on it. There are other types of mindfulness that might have you focus on other things. But in this basic practice, we're simply going to use breath as really just a way of focusing, of focusing on this moment. In fact, each breath marks a new moment. And probably the easiest way to explain mindfulness is to actually practice mindfulness. The idea in a practice of mindfulness is to put some space between you and your thoughts, or you and your feelings, or you and your emotions. And by putting some space between thoughts, feelings, and emotions, rather than trying to suppress them, we can let go of the meanings that we attach to those things, the stress and the anxiety. And so what I'd like you to do right now is simply close your eyes for a minute and breathe in and breathe out. You don't need to breathe in any special way. Just breathe in and breathe out and pay attention to your breath. And as you pay attention to the breath, notice what that breath feels like. Notice the sensation of the air as you breathe it in. Notice the feeling of the air being drawn into the lungs. Notice how deep the breath goes in the lungs, and what you're really doing here is observing or studying the breath. Paying attention to it. We breathe from the first day of life to the last day of life, and rarely do we ever pay attention to the breath. But right now, as you're watching this video with the eyes closed, pay attention to that breath, what it feels like to exhale that air. As you continue to breathe in and breathe out, really focus on the breath. Now notice something. By simply focusing on the breath, you've really turned all of your mental attention inward. If there were things that you were worrying about before this session, or things in the past that you've been dwelling on, notice how right now, without any effort, you've set those things aside and really paid attention to this moment. Now go ahead and open your eyes. Go ahead and open your eyes. If your eyes aren't open, go ahead, take in a breath and open those eyes. And this is really what mindfulness is all about. We practice paying attention to the breath so that we can be fully present in this moment. The reason why we pay attention to the breath is because it gives us a focal point. And so here's the second goal of a mindfulness practice. Chances are pretty good you've said to yourself at one point or another, I'm not sure I can turn my thoughts off. I just think too much. A lot of people say that. Well, I have good news for you. You don't have to try to stop anxiety. You don't have to try to stop depression. You don't have to try to stop anger or pain or difficulty or stress. The idea, rather than trying to stop those things, is to learn to recognize them and use them as a cue to bring your attention back to the present. And so during our mindfulness practice on our MP3, I'm actually going to be silent for about a minute. And during that silent period, what you're going to discover is that your mind thinks. And it's perfectly okay for your mind to think. The idea here during mindfulness is not to stop thinking. It's not to stop having thoughts. The idea is to learn how to stop following those thoughts, how to stop being enmeshed with those thoughts, how to stop your mind drifting into the future or back to the past. And the way to do that is during our practice, when you notice a thought or notice a feeling or notice a sensation, to say to yourself, hey, that's a thought. Hey, that's a feeling. Hey, that's a sensation. Acknowledge it. And then use it as a cue, rather than following it, to say to yourself, hey, it's time to go back to focusing on my breathing, using it as an indicator to return your attention back to the breath. So before you go ahead and download the MP3, let's go ahead and go through a basic practice right here as you're watching this video. And so go ahead and close your eyes again. And as we learn to practice mindfulness, sitting in the chair with your posture aligned and yet relaxed and comfortable, close the eyes. And with the eyes closed, pay attention again to your breath. As you breathe in and breathe out, pay attention to the familiarity of the breath. Something you've been doing every day, but have probably not taken the time to really observe or study. And as you breathe in and breathe out, mindfully pay attention to what a breath feels like, to the moment that each breath begins, to the feeling of the air as it enters into your nostrils, what it feels like to draw the air in. Notice a feeling of the air flowing in, the temperature of that breath, and where the breath travels into your lungs. There comes a point, of course, where the breath turns around in the lungs and becomes an exhale. Notice that point. And as you exhale, follow the breath out, noting the speed and the pressure of the air as you exhale. It is, of course, just a breath, but something that we rarely pay attention to. And by practicing paying attention to the breath, you've now created something that you can focus on. So when you have a thought or a feeling or a sensation that's uncomfortable or difficult, rather than trying to get it to stop or spending your mental efforts following it, you can simply say to yourself, there's an anxiety, or there's a fear, or there's a thought. And then say to yourself, I'm just going to note it. I'm going to simply observe it. And rather than follow that thought or feeling or sensation, use that as an indicator to bring your attention back to the breath. You don't need to suppress thoughts. You don't even need to judge thoughts. Oh, that was a bad thought, or that was a good thought. Rather, just notice that you're having thoughts, feelings, or sensations, and then gently use your breath as a focal point to return your attention to the moment. This is what our audio MP3 practice is going to be all about practicing. Life is comprised of a series of moments, each one timed with a breath. And by noticing the breath, we live fully in the present. And that is an awesome skill to learn. Now go ahead and take in a deep breath. Let the oxygen fill your lungs, and as the oxygen fills your lungs, let yourself feel a sense of energy. And when I count to 3, open the eyes, feeling fantastic and ready for the rest of the day. 1, taking in another breath. 2, letting yourself feel incredible from taking a moment to create a state of calm. And 3, open the eyes, feeling fantastic, ready for the rest of the day. Now, chances are pretty good your counselor, therapist, coach has provided you with some additional information about mindfulness. And of course, that's one of those terms you can Google search to learn more about as well. There are lots of different resources for learning mindfulness. This is simply a basic strategy, but please download the MP3 that's below. Download it to your mobile device or download it to your computer so you can access it really at any time and anywhere. And with intention, go through the process of practicing mindfulness using that guided MP3. If you do that each and every day for a week or two, you'll find that mindfulness is something that something you have practiced, but something you have also begun to internalize and do automatically in life.